Hey guys, so the day finally came and I can test speakers from legendary brand SONUS FABER. In terms of the aesthetics, the Lumina II is for sure uniquely designed. I suppose not everyone will like them because their looks are in opposite to now trendy minimalistic approach. The speakers have quite few decorative elements and use combination of various materials throughout the cabinet shell. The sides are wrapped in synthetic leather and the front is finished with some wood veneer and chrome. My take on them is somewhere in the middle. I do not hate the looks, but I personally don't think they are the prettiest speakers out there either. In my opinion, just not exactly the Maserati of speakers. Having said that, the damping seemed to be quite respectable, I imagine due to the use of very thick MDF. And as for the whole build, it feels quite solid, but I would personally prefer to see a bit bigger cabinet and better quality terminals looking at the back, because the ones looked a tad cheap and uninspiring, especially if you would compare it to, let's say, Quadral Platinum Plus 2. But let's move to the most important. How does the SONUS FABER Lumina II play? Well, it produces a very interesting sound and more importantly quite different from what most loudspeaker manufacturers are offering. But let's start one by one. From the first turn on, the sound surprised me with its scale. The soundstage both in width and in depth is extremely impressive and almost unbelievable for such a small speaker. You definitely cannot complain about the sense of weight. The subtle but determined low frequency foundation is present here in every twitch of the diaphragm. That said, it never reaches the point of overtaking the rest of the sound. The bass is quite fast and controlled, but at the same time soft, and it almost always remains in the background, giving a subtle but dense foundation to the whole experience. However, things seem a bit different in regard to the mids and highs. Whereas indeed it's a sound that's much bigger than I would ever expect from a such cabinet size, I can hear Lumina II tries to achieve that with some level of trickery. When you're switching through different tracks, you just sometimes notice that this is still a smaller speaker in the end. Perhaps the sound lacks a bit of openness and coherence. It's a weird phenomenon, but like I said, on occasions Lumina can sound a bit restrained and condensed, as for example similarly small Q Acoustics 3030i I've tested last year. Obviously not trying to compare the two. Maybe it sounds this way due to its slightly lower crossover point. In fact, almost from the beginning I noticed the tweeter-woofer combination works a bit different here in comparison with most other speakers. This as well may be wholly responsible for mentioned advantages and that overall charm. I can't however turn a blind eye on potential downsides of this solution. The speakers can play a little artificial, get a little lost in some poor recordings, not keeping up with, for example, rock or some more dynamic genres. Vocals can also take a specific tone, which honestly not everyone will like. Although it is worth mentioning that the vocals are often magnified by this speaker, so I really think it is a speaker full of contradiction and surprises. On one hand it provides with big scale, but on the other you can somehow sense it is a bit illusory. The vocals can sound large and revealing, but on some other tracks slightly weird. Moving to the high frequencies, they seem noticeably boosted but somehow not that sharp. I imagine treble here might be partly responsible for that artificial tone, but also thanks to that you can hear a lot of details, which probably translates to some extent into really great imaging and separation this speaker achieves. Smallest nuances are picked up in good recordings and the speaker can be quite revealing. In this case, I can indeed say about a certain holography of the scene, which in itself deserves recognition. In conclusion, the SONUS FABER Lumina II was one of the most interesting constructions I've dealt with. The scale that this little speaker plays is simply unbelievable and the soundstage feels a bit holographic. Despite mentioned, I do not see them for myself. At $1000 price mark, I would personally look for a slightly different sound. Maybe it would be more ordinary choice for some, but I would rather opt for a greater degree of openness and lightness in ability to create a natural sounding scene. Like I've said, Lumina 2 is a good speaker, but in the end can sound a little too artificial with some lack in overall composure. But please, share your opinion on the SONUS FABER Lumina 2 in the comments. If you want to support my work, please consider subscribing. 1000 subscribers is really all what is needed at this moment. See you in the next one. Peace.